Thursday, August 22nd. Very little aerial activity is reported against England today. An air raid in the southeastern section of the country caused slight damage. There were unconfirmed reports in London that a cabinet reorganization would take place, retiring such members as Chamberlain, Foreign Secretary Lord Halifax, and the Minister of Information, Alfred Duff Cooper. In Rome, it was predicted that the next Italian offensive would be made against British troops in Egypt. Now the news direct from the German capital.
This is Berlin. Yesterday, Congress sent to the White House the resolution permitting American ships to evacuate children under 16 from the war zones, provided that these ships are guaranteed safe conduct by all the belligerents. And this morning, we find Germany's reaction. The official news agency has put out a statement which may be summed up as follows. No guarantee of safe conduct could be given to American ships for two reasons. First, the waters surrounding the British Isles are mine-infested, it is stated here, so that there can be no such a thing as a guarantee of a safe voyage through these waters. And secondly, the news agency points out that no exception can be made to the total blockade announced against England, and no responsibility accepted here should anything happen to the ships. Explaining that the American resolution stipulates that guarantees of safe conduct must be first given by the belligerents, the news agency adds, quote, "It must be pointed out that no belligerent is in the position to give such a guarantee where sailings in mine-infested waters are concerned." Then this statement says further, quote, "The British government itself has not taken responsibility for the evacuation of children across these perilous waters, leaving it to the discretion of the rich parents to evacuate their children at their own risk. Under these circumstances, it is impossible to regard the American law, the humanitarian purpose of which is of course beyond doubt, as a workable proposition in actual practice," end of quote. Then the semi-official statement adds that humanitarian considerations make it impossible for any country to guarantee the safety of voyages in mine-infested waters. Quote, "Germany cannot be instrumental in exposing children to additional dangers in war zones. She continues to regard the American neutrality law, which has removed the possibility of incidents by preventing American ships from sailing in the war zones, as a very suitable course for the purpose of avoiding incidents which might be an element of friction between the two countries," end of quote. So it would seem that the German government will not give the required guarantees of safe passage. But this day-and-day statement may be amplified by an official pronouncement from some governmental official later. The German Army communique reports that during yesterday, 3 merchant ships coming from the United States on their way to Liverpool were damaged by German bombing attacks far out in the Atlantic off the north and west coasts of Ireland. 2 of these ships were spotted approximately 150 miles west of Ireland, while the third was picked up about 120 miles to the northwest of the Tory Islands, according to the communique. The Germans say that these ships were carrying food cargoes to England, and that the German planes which bombed them came from the new air bases established along the west coast of France. So far, this morning we have had no news of aerial activity over the Channel. Maybe this is another day of bad flying weather. For the last few days, the air attacks on England have been restricted because of the weather, we've been told here by the German news agency. In Berlin, we continue to hear rumors about a crisis in Finland regarding its future as a Baltic state. So far, we have no confirmation or detailed information as to what is going on in Helsinki. However, Deutsches Allgemeine Zeitung this morning carries a small item. It reports that the Finnish government has issued a decree to punish all those who spread alarmist stories, either of their own creation or picked up from foreign radio stations. Approximately 150 million pounds of foodstuffs and vegetables were sent from Holland into Germany from May 15th to July 31st. This statement is made in an interview in the Deutsche Zeitung given by Count Grote, the new farmers' leader in Holland. In discussing the future agricultural program of the Netherlands, he stated that tulip growing will have to be restricted so that more vegetables and more important foodstuffs can be produced. This is Edwin Hartridge, returning you now to Columbia in New York.
This is New York. Here's a dispatch from Shanghai. The commander of American troops of the Shanghai Volunteer Corps has appealed for more American volunteers to help in defending the international settlement. It is understood that United States Marine authorities intend to inaugurate special intensified training courses for Americans. We switch you now to the British capital for the news of latest developments reported by Larry Lesseur. Go ahead, London.
This is London. England got some good news from Egypt this morning. The Egyptian premier has declared that Egypt will fight if invaded. One Egyptian division has already taken up war position. All radio stations in Germany and her conquered territories went off the air about 10 o'clock last night, leading to the conclusion that British heavy bombers were conducting their usual nightly raids. But Germany again failed to retaliate last night or this morning. Only single bombers or small formations crossed the coast. A British convoy off the northeast coast was attacked by 3 planes this morning. Yesterday, 13 German planes were shot down. The RAF says they lost 1 fighter. Everyone is wondering why the Germans have curtailed their mass raids on this country. Some Royal Air Force pilots yesterday gave me their theory. They say that when the skies are cloaked with an endless blanket of clouds, the German planes can come over only singly. This, say the British pilots, is because the Germans are using inexperienced pilots who would get separated from their formations in heavy clouds. So, under conditions of low weather visibility, the Germans send only their best men over, alone. In other quarters, the theory is that the Germans have found they cannot risk daylight raids, and they are preparing for mass night raids like the British, for which special training and parachute flares are necessary. News pictures in today's newspapers support the theory that the German Air Force cannot stand up under many more mass daylight raids on England. The pictures are of a great junk heap, broken, burnt, and twisted Nazi planes piled atop one another, ready to make scrap metal for England. The junk pile resembles an elephant's graveyard, huge gaunt ribs and broken backbones. We wonder what happened to all the airplanes Germany captured in her conquered territories. British pilots tell me that in the last fortnight, after the collapse of France, they encountered American Curtisses, French Douatines, and Hurricanes which had been sold to Belgium. Piloted by Germans, these planes retained their former Allied colors. The confusion was incredible. But apparently the Germans couldn't fathom it either. They must have been shooting down their own pilots, for in the past month, the RAF has not seen any of the captured planes in action. Never before has so much been owed by so many to so few. Winston Churchill was referring to the Royal Air Force fighter pilots. Yesterday, I paid a visit to one of Britain's crack squadrons, the boys who are called the Dover Patrol of the Air. They do most of the patrols over that hot spot on the English Channel. These cheerful young fellows told me they thought they had one of the best records in the fighter command. 130 German aircraft down with a loss of only 1 man to the squadron. Leslie Howard, the movie actor, was with me on this visit. He's a reporter now, does broadcast to America for the British Broadcasting. But this day, his position was reversed. Alongside these handsome, strapping fellows of the Royal Air Force, it was they who looked the part of Hollywood heroes. Nor did the fighter pilots trail after Mr. Howard for autographs. Like any other Britisher today, he looked up at them admiringly as they told how they could turn inside the German machines and shoot them down. And the movie star grinned when he read their fan letters. The star of Gone with the Wind laughed when one of the pilots asked why Vivian Lee didn't become a reporter. They'd give her plenty of stories. Then Mr. Howard and I went to a movie. Inside a small camouflage shack on the airfield, we saw more exciting movies than Hollywood has ever produced. They were the sort of movies only fighter pilots can take. Filmed with camera guns in actual battle 2 or 3 miles above the earth. The films were short and jerky. The camera registers only when the guns are fired, and they fire in 2 or 3 second bursts, but long enough to send hundreds of rounds spitting from the 8 machine guns. The title of these films was very simple, like prize fight cards. Flying Officer John Smith versus a Messerschmitt 110. There was no sound, only the gasps from us reporters. Tracer bullets whizzed like flaming golf balls at the German planes. Men were being killed before our eyes. We didn't talk for a few minutes when the strange movies ended. Not even movie star Leslie Howard. I return you now to CBS in New York.
That was Larry Lesseur reporting from London. Now, at this time, Cecil Brown is standing by in the Italian capital. Go ahead, Rome.
This is Rome. Waves of Italian bombers attacked the formation of British cruisers and destroyers. High Command has just announced that the attack was carried out in the eastern Mediterranean. We are told the British flotilla consisted of two 10,000-ton cruisers, 4 cruisers of 5,000 tons, and 2 destroyers. The High Command says 2 of the cruisers were hit repeatedly by bombs, and that all the Italian planes returned safely to their bases. The Italians claim 2 other naval victories today. The War Bulletin reports in the eastern Mediterranean, a fascist torpedo chaser has sunk a submarine, and a fascist submarine has torpedoed a British destroyer. For the 3rd time, Gibraltar was attacked by Italian planes. A formation of bombers, the High Command says, bombed military objectives at the British base guarding the western end of the Mediterranean. 1 Italian plane failed to return. In East Africa, a British plane was shot down by native Dubat troops at a place named Kokatia in Kenya. According to this communique, the Italians had the better of it today by sinking a submarine, torpedoing a destroyer, and bombing 2 cruisers. Each side lost 1 airplane. There have been heavy and frequent air attacks on the island of Malta. These seem to have the double purpose of removing the island as a threat to the Italian peninsula and also as a threat to the next fascist drive in Africa. Nothing is being said here about the Egyptian situation. Italy's official position toward Egypt was fixed by Mussolini at the outbreak of the war. And that was, if Egypt is not attacked, she would not be attacked. It's hard to say how long that sort of situation can continue now that British Somaliland has been conquered. Stories printed here claim that the British have disarmed the Egyptian army. Stephanie, the Italian news agency, carries a story today from San Sebastian, Spain, that Mexico and Guatemala are opposed to the United States creating naval bases in British Honduras. According to Stephanie, many of the South American republics think the United States is trying to use the Axis threat as an excuse to transform the entire Caribbean Sea into a great naval base for the American fleet. Stephanie attributes to South American circles the idea that when Washington has realized this program, the independence of Colombia and Venezuela will be greatly restricted. Those 2 republics would be forced to gravitate toward the United States. And Stephanie says that prospect is not very pleasing to Brazil. The Rome newspaper, Popolo di Roma, carries a 1-paragraph story under a Belgrade dateline today. If the story is true, there can be great repercussions in the Balkans and eastern Mediterranean. The story says that Russia has sent to Turkey a request for the passage through the Dardanelles of Russian ships of war. If such a request was made, it appears to mean that Russia wants either at once or in the near future the right of her fleet to enter the Mediterranean. The Principality of Monaco, tucked away at the Riviera frontier between Italy and France, is famous for the gaming tables of Monte Carlo. Monaco is in the news here today for a different reason. A number of Italians stopped in Monaco for a religious ceremony. They were on their way back from a French concentration camp. For some reason, the Italians were attacked by a group of residents. The Italians resisted and drove off their attackers. Well, it was revealed today that the Italian consul at Monaco has obtained the dismissal of the Director General of Public Security and other officials responsible for the attack. And everyone in Monaco was ordered to give up their guns within 24 hours. This is Cecil Brown in Rome, returning you to CBS in New York.
This is New York, and here is a brief dispatch from Tokyo. Foreign Minister Matsoko said today that Japan must be fully prepared to meet difficulties rising from relations of the United States and European powers with the South Seas region. And with this news, we conclude this morning's report of European developments, which is presented by Columbia each morning at this time and each evening at 6:45 Eastern Daylight Saving Time. Edwin Hartridge reported from Berlin, Larry Lesser reported from London, and Cecil Brown just reported from Rome. Larry Elliott speaking. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.